Hey guys, can you truly be happy with what you have and still constantly be striving for more? In this week's episode, we are talking the great balancing act of contentment and ambition and how to keep it all straight. Guys, I chose a big topic for today. So, like always, I am going to do my best to provide some relevant examples just to kind of set the scene with how we're all juggling the struggle between contentment and ambition. And then I'll weave a few of the tips and tricks that I've seen contribute to my own balancing act success and failures. And then we'll wrap up with our unjuggled tips like we always do. So, let's just get on into it. All week long, I knew I wanted to talk about this back and forth contentment versus ambition topic. And all week long, I found myself struggling to actually get this episode outlined. Going to bed one night, I decided to set the alarm for just a little bit earlier so that I could get up and just knock the task out. The next morning, alarm starts chirping and I decide to hit the snooze button. Ha ha ha. But don't you worry, I know me, so I have already set up a backup alarm. That'll go off right after that one. Well, snooze. As the alarms continue taking turns going off, I slowly start waking up and I'm thinking to myself, nah, I'm good. Like right here in this cozy bed, I'm sleeping in my slumber. Like I'm good. I'm content. Now, fast forward to the end of that day where it's been a full day and all the things on my list, they definitely had not gotten done. And I mutter those famous words we all say way too often. Gosh, if only I had just had a little more time in the day. You did. You did. Remember when you hit that snooze button for 5 more minutes and then you hit it for 5 more times? Ah, and later I'm sitting there, I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, that's it. That's the perfect example of almost too much contentment. Being so good with where we're at, what we have, and so much so that if someone literally was like, hey, you want more time in the day? You'd be like, nah, I'm good. Contentment is the state of being mentally or emotionally satisfied with things as they are. And often there is an immense amount of peace that comes with that. But oddly enough, contentment doesn't always have a positive connotation. Sometimes I would even say that it gets associated with laziness or even a total lack of ambition and complacency. I hear folks that tend to talk about their college kids, for instance, in this way. And, they're sharing that the young adult, they're just focusing on school and being with their friends. They're really not looking too far out into the future. They're just good with where they're at. They're content. Although this statement is probably the most politically correct way to say that the college kid is potentially lacking the kick in the pants ambition to get the degree done, I think it's also a good example of contentment just being this gift of being in a state of comfort and at peace and just going with the flow. If we're at peace, is that really a bad thing? My husband and I, we've had this conversation 100 different times about these two concepts. It normally goes, so let's see if you can relate here. Normally goes something like him wanting a bigger truck or needing to buy the upgraded power tool. And my brain immediately spinning into oblivion, asking him the same question. When will you ever just be happy with what you have? And then the debate begins. And it always comes back around to I'm happy, I'm content, but what's wrong with wanting more and having big goals? To which, obviously, I say there's nothing wrong with that. All within reason, though, right? And I'm calling all of us out here. Like, what percentage of our day do we spend thinking about or desiring all of the things we don't have versus finding gratitude and joy in the things we do have? physically, mentally, emotionally, there has to be a certain level of gratitude and satisfaction in like the current joy and fulfillment, I think, before we can even think about leveling up our lives. So basically, I'm saying like we have to allow ourselves to experience contentment. But on the other side, if you're so content that someone is offering you more time, more money, more freedom, and you're saying, nah, I'm good, then maybe that level of peace like isn't a great thing. Now, before I debunk that myth, okay, like let's flip and let's just talk about the other side of this balancing act. So, talking about ambition. We all seem to be much more familiar with this like go getter, strong desired, and like determined to achieve something force. No doubt that ambition serves as this propeller in setting and pursuing meaningful goals in our careers, our personal growth, our relationships. I like to think that we all have a piece of ambition in us. Some more than others, but the general desire to like make good things happen in your life and to hit goals or milestones. But just like we talked about a little on last week's episode about how high achievers, if we're constantly pursuing more and we keep our eyes locked on the ever moving target, like, aren't we to some extent in that we're robbing ourselves from experiencing the presence of contentment and the presence of peace? I totally think we are. I mean, we're so busy taking the work phone call that we miss our kids' soccer goal. We're so focused on putting in another hour of work for that big, ambitious goal that we sacrifice the hour of personal care. We're so ambitious towards the things we think are going to give us peace. And I say we because I'm guilty of every single one of those ambitious, flawful moments. Flawful? Flawed moments. Like I'm guilty of every single one of those ambitious, flawed moments. Guys, I don't have answers. Like, this is just some of the stuff that comes out in conversations and even on my own journey of self-awareness and fulfillment. And for me, what I can say is that I don't think it has to be as far left side versus far right side as we may tend to initially see it. And I have actually experienced these things as beautiful reciprocated gifts of one another. Contentment with ambition and ambition with contentment is where real magic happens. Perfect example. So one area of my life where I can say I am so content and at peace and so satisfied is in my marriage. So happy with who we are, where we're at, and what we have together. I can also recognize that it is in this contentment where I find the greatest courage and security and desire to keep pressing forward ambitiously for more for our relationship. Because of our contentment, my ambition for growth is fueled for more of who we want to be and what we want to have. Maybe I can say it this way. It's actually the contentment, the peace, and the comfortability in our marriage that is exactly what has created the space for confidence and the purity and the desire to grow and pursue more for our relationship. I also think it's really important just to call out that contentment isn't boredom. The contentment I experience in all the right ways in my life is rooted in deep and genuine gratitude. And in turn, it's because I have a deep gratitude for what I have that my ambition is given the space to roar full steam ahead in a more balanced and symbiotic way. These two feelings of contentment and ambition, they butt heads because contentment tends to emphasize acceptance and being present, whereas ambition often focuses on striving for future goals and improvements. But we can have both. And we just have to be sure we're giving the right level of effort and prioritization to each in the appropriate scenarios. So, as we unjuggle this, like three things come to mind. Number one, just practice gratitude often. Practice being so content and at peace with where you are at, what you have, and who you are. Practice this gratitude without allowing yourself to wander down the list of all the things you don't have. So for me, what does this actually like look like? Like, how do I do this? I've done everything from a gratitude journal to writing three things I'm grateful for on a sticky note every day, to instilling a habit for our family that every night at the dining room table with the kids, we go around the table and we all talk about what the best part of our day was. Gratitude requires practice. And the more we practice, the better we get, and the more abundance just really starts overflowing in our lives. So think and commit, like for yourself, like what is one thing you could do today to practice gratitude? And are you willing to do it again tomorrow? Number two, unjuggle. There is such grace and freedom that comes in just recognizing that everything doesn't have to be a battle. We don't have to balance contentment or ambition. We can have both. And in fact, if we allow both to exist at healthy levels, they actually thrive off one another. For instance, the gratitude and the peace we feel in contentment are also gifting us confidence and courage to set our eyes on the next thing that we want for our life. We get to grow in that comfort and that peace. And we also get to ambitiously pursue that next big goal. And number three on juggle, just always remember to have grace, especially for the times where ambition clouds contentment and for the times when contentment stifles ambition. It happens. The world around us is constantly buzzing and happy to remind us of all of the things we don't have and must buy right now. Just keep recalibrating, working on that self awareness, and just giving yourself love as we're just continuing to figure this whole life thing out. So that's my take on it. Pretty big topic and one that we could probably spend years unpacking, but this is where I'm at today. So until next week, bye.